Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and get started. I don't see anybody walking up right now, but I'm sure we may have a few people come in within the next few minutes. I am Amy Vernon. I am the middle school head, and I am beginning my 25th year at Holy Comforter, my 7th year as middle school head. Before that, I taught primarily social studies in the middle school, but also did some lower school religion and some chapels and a few other things. So it is my joy and pleasure to be here again this year. I also have two daughters who went all the way from pre-K 3 through 8th grade at Holy Comforter and then transitioned to Childs, and we are dispatching one to USF next week. So it was a wonderful, wonderful experience for my girls here. Not without its bumps and bruises in middle school, just like everybody else. So, it will happen, but don't worry. We all get through it. And, the kids really do extraordinarily well. I am flanked by Ryan Snowden and Lisa Butera. Probably you guys know them. They are an integral part of this middle school team. So they're going to be speaking with you guys a little bit later. I just want to go ahead and jump in. Really, we're going to focus on two things tonight, and that is what may look academically different from lower school, and then what will probably look a little socially, emotionally different from your middle schooler as well. And you may already be sort of seeing or feeling that at home for you guys who have brand new middle schoolers. I know I have some returning middle school parents as well. So Mac, if you want to move on for me. All right, so this is just sort of the foundation of what we believe philosophically, why we do what we do in the middle school, and we really consider it a 3-year holistic program. Of course, it's broken up into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but our teachers really look at it as one cohesive time period, and so we're really intentional about how we do each of those levels so that we can take these kids just as far as we possibly can, both academically and socially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, all the way through this particular transition. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on is the rigor that we have in our classrooms and through our curriculum. It is a challenging curriculum, and it is intended to be that way. We really push these guys to their limits, intentionally giving them every bit of support that they need, but they are going to be academically challenged, and we want to give them those opportunities while it's still really, really safe and the stakes are pretty low. So, we really push them to achieve much more than they think they possibly can, and think much more critically than they think they possibly can. So it really is, when they say it's hard, it is probably hard, and that's intentional on our part. But of course, we do this all within the scaffolding of the grade levels and making sure they have every piece that they need to be successful. Middle school is obviously a time of self-discovery, for growing independence. Our relationships really focus on teacher to student because that's such a primary relationship with these guys at this age. And it really is one of the last opportunities that they look at teachers a little bit starry-eyed. By the time they get to high school, they're sort of like, okay, just let's get this done and move on to the next. But one of the things that you'll hear middle school teachers say when I ask them, hey, why do you want to teach middle school, which is really one of the first questions we ask, because why would you want to teach middle school? And they say it's because they're old enough to have really neat conversations with, right? So they can go back and forth, and they have that analysis really coming through, but they're still very, very teachable. And in moments, they're still very, very young and impressionable. And so that's, you'll hear our middle school teachers talk about that this is really such a critical time and such a fun time to be with these guys, because it really does take a special kind of person to hang out with 13-year-olds year after year after year. So we really push that relationship. You'll start to see emails go back and forth between your kid and the teacher, and it may be addressing an issue that normally you would have possibly heard first. But now we're going to say, hey, remember this conversation, or hey, remember you are missing this assignment. And we're keeping you guys in the loop by putting you on those emails as well. So you'll start to see that transition, particularly in 6th grade. We definitely don't want to cut you out of the conversation, but we want to move the conversation and the relationship really, because we want those kids to take ownership of their education. And by 8th grade, we want them being proactive with their teachers so they have that kind of established pattern and relationship. So when they get to high school and the teachers aren't necessarily as proactive with them, they've established some habits and they've really established a comfort level with being their own advocates for their education. So you'll start to see that a little bit of a transition. If you ever feel like, oh my gosh, I need to reach out to the teacher, please do so. Like I said, we're in no way cutting you out of the conversation. We're just moving it a little bit towards really establishing that dynamic between teachers and students. And feel free to, respond to the teacher when you see that. Again, it's not, to keep you out of anything. It's just to move that relationship. Making mistakes is okay, and a powerful teacher resists the saving. Even when they call you or text you panicked because they don't have their computer, which they do need, or they don't have their homework, which they do need. It's very, very tough. We have a lot of parents, and this is, I encourage parents, like, give them one for 9 weeks or one for a semester where I'll bring your homework or I'll bring your computer. And it will be a hard day if they don't have their computer. And it, may be a hard class if they don't have their homework, but an excellent lesson for them. So, really, we let them make their mistakes, let them make the mistakes, let them fail. They really, for those things like leaving my computer at home, they'll do it once and they likely will not do it again if they've had to go their whole day without their computer. But things like that are really important for these guys. And again, we create a safe environment. They're going to feel some consequences, but at the same time, they're going to feel loved and supported within those consequences. So, and we talk to them about that as well. Like, it's okay. Like, yeah, you may have messed up this one, but it's okay. We've got another day. We've got another chance. So it's really an important lesson for our guys, and important foundationally for what we teach them. We are so fortunate to be at Holy Comforter, where we can have this really balanced approach. So like I said, we're a rigorous curriculum. We challenge them intellectually. We also challenge them socially and emotionally. We hold them to a very high standard in how they relate to their teachers and each other. And so we're able to address things a lot differently than some other schools are. And, we talk to these kids about relationship with God and respect and how all of this works together. So we really take a holistic approach with our students. And, we teach them intentionally. Our target program, which Lisa can talk more about, is really a character development and social emotional program that we embed into our curriculum each and every day. So it's a holistic approach for these guys, because they're not just academic, and particularly at this age, they're very emotional and very social. And so all of that is addressed. And then, of course, we're so fortunate to be able to also include that spiritual component with them as well. Work ethic and character, as I said, we do a lot of work in that area with these guys, because as much as we want them to learn content, and this is what I tell them, I want you to learn a lot of stuff, and I want you to know a lot when you guys leave here, but I want you to be good people. And so that's, they're going to keep learning math, and they're going to keep learning science and social studies. So that's one of the things that we really, really focus on within the academics, within our target program, within our athletics. Every piece of our life with them, this is included. So it's really, work ethic, working hard, being accountable, and then, of course, character, how we treat each other, how we treat our beautiful school, how it is that we are members of a community. So that's really also an important piece that we have. So that's kind of just the fundamental of what makes our program. What sort of supports everything that we do in the classroom and beyond. You can go ahead, Mac. So this is then that slide wrapped up in our language with the kids. So every morning they come in, and as a part of the announcements, they say this honor code. So everything that I just talked about with you guys, this is how we explain it to the kids. And this is what they say every single day. So today, and actually they wrote it several years ago. We had our target classes and our National Honor Society help develop this as a piece of our curriculum. So today, with God's help, I will be honest, encouraging, and compassionate. I will strive to be my very best and use my God-given gifts to be the difference in my school and community. I will lead my fellow students and be an example for others. I will make responsible choices and respect my teachers and peers. I will work hard and be nice. And that bottom part is really kind of our tagline. Right? I will work hard and be nice. And so when occasionally a child deviates from this standard, which does happen, this is an easy and common language for the teachers to use with them. Hey, what happened there? Looking at our honor code, maybe where did we miss the mark? And that's the same conversation I have. If then maybe they have to show up in my office or with Mr. Snowden, this is always where we take them because it's something that they understand, it's concrete, and we can discuss, hey, what happened? Because though, again, we do hold them accountable and we do have consequences, we want to make sure it's restorative, and the point of that is simply to learn. We want them to be accountable. We want them to learn and to be able to do things better. So all of that, like I said, that philosophy is wrapped up practically for the kids in our honor code, and this is where we're constantly taking them back to. All right, go ahead, Mac. All right, so the actual schedule, I know, don't panic. It's okay. It's really okay. So this is what the middle school day looks like. And you can see we make it hard as possible because it's not even 5 days, it's 6 days. So that doesn't make any sense. But this is what we have as a rotating block schedule. So our academic classes are 70 minutes long, which is a really great time frame to not be like, oh my gosh, why are you still in my classroom? But also still enough time to really deeply get into some curriculum and do some great activities with them. So all of those letters represent core academic classes. So next Wednesday, we will start on day 1, and they will have A, B, C, and D block. And you'll get that information when they come get their schedule on Tuesday. And then you'll see it really kind of rotates every 3 days, so the schedule repeats itself. We do have a couple of time frames that don't rotate, and that's that target class, so that's our advisory period. And you can see during that class time, they are either in their target class on days 1 and 4. Everybody's in chapel. 6th, 7th, and 8th graders each have religion 1 day for every of those 6 days. Mother Beth teaches 6th and 7th grade religion. Mr. Kleekamp, who has joined us, and I teach the 8th grade religion, and Mr. Kleekamp does a really great job with an ethics and kind of world religions component. And then I specifically talk to them about leadership and biblical leadership because by 8th grade, that's really a big focus we have with them is what it means to be a leader because they're about to move on. And then we have our elective class, which is at the same time every day, even though the electives themselves switch. So your kids will get this. You may never get it, but that's okay. So if they come home and you say, well, what'd you do in math today? And they say, I didn't have math today. They are not necessarily wrong. They might be, because maybe they don't remember. Or if you say, when your math homework due tomorrow, well, I don't have math tomorrow. Again, they might not be wrong. And you can actually check the computer to see if they are or are not wrong, but they don't see all of their academic classes each and every day. So it's kind of like a 2 days on, 1 day off rotation. But again, this will be in their planner. This will be, you can see this various places if you want to look at it. But this is just how our middle school rotation works. So that's a little bit different than in lower school. And you can see, sorry, Matt, could you go back? We start at 8:05. So that's the tardy bell. So that's a little bit different. They can come on campus if they're not enrolled in the Alpha program. 7:45, they come. They all hang out in here. It's all right. Listen, I work with middle schoolers, remember, so it's all good. Oh, good. So 8:05, they're considered tardy. So 7:55, if they get dropped off after 7:45, they come in here. 7:55, the bell rings. They all go to their first period class, and then they get out at 3:05. And they have lockers this year, so if you're sitting out in the carpool line up front or out back, and you're like, good Lord, it has been 10 minutes, it's because they're just trying to figure out what to do at their lockers and hanging out with each other. All right, thank you, Mac. You can go on. All right, so our grading system also a little bit different. So you really will only see 2 kinds of assignments. We have lots of different wonderful things that our classroom teachers do, but when you look at the grade book, you will see skills assignments and you will see responsibility assignments. The skills assignments are for our academic classes worth 70% of the grade. So that's mastery. Those are going to be your bigger assignments or some smaller assignments along the way that's checking for mastery of a content. So that's the tests, the projects, the papers, anything that the teachers are saying, okay, I need to know what you know about this subject. The responsibility grades are going to be more along the line of homework or classwork. That is the process of learning the content. So it's a little hard to grasp at first, but it makes for very easy conversations when we're looking at where a kid might be struggling. So if we see responsibility grades are, 90, 95%, we know they're doing the work, but for some reason maybe they're still struggling in the class. We know, okay, there's some concepts that we're struggling with. Flip that, and if we see that the skills grades are in the 80s and 90s, but the responsibility grade is in the 30s, then we know what's happening there. Okay, you're not doing your work, right? Maybe you're not turning in your homework or you're not doing what the teachers asked you to do in class. So again, you won't see something classified as classwork or homework or a test. You'll see it as a skills grade and you'll see it as a responsibility grade. And for those core academic classes, like I said, those skills grade count 70%. So that's really kind of along the lines of a high school class. So that's what we're moving them towards, is that kind of designation. Our elective classes, it's a 50-50 split between skills and responsibility. And some assignments can be both, so you'll see them in both categories. If there's a big paper due, the content, the mastery is going to be a skills, but we also need you to turn it in on time and do things the way we've asked you to do them, so that could be a responsibility grade as well. All right, Mac? All right, and like I said, the breakdown is 70-30 for academic and 50-50 for elective classes. All right, Mac, you can go ahead. Our conduct grading system also a little bit different. So we have letters that just designate kind of how, those kids are hanging out in those classes. Every 6 days, so at the end of every cycle, you'll see a conduct grade pop up for the kids in the classes. So that's just kind of a summary of what those 6 days has been like. And then after the 9 weeks, they kind of tally all those, and it shows up on the 9 weeks grade. Now, our kids primarily, these guys are M's, right? They are wonderful, normal middle schoolers. So if you see an M, don't panic. Because, everyone's like, oh, it's an E. Okay, so like our academics, we want to challenge them when it comes to conduct and character. So Most of the time, these guys are M's, and we love them, and that's where we want them. Sometimes they might raise to another level, and they're being really proactive in a class, and they're just being a model in that time period, and so they may hit an E. But E's are, we want them to have to reach for that, just like those academics. And then occasionally you might see an N. If you see an N, don't panic either. If you see 3 or 4 N's, then we're going to have some conversations. But that just may be, hey, you've come to class unprepared a couple of times in a row. So you might get an N for the day. You'll hear that. Or an N for the cycle. You'll hear that. Still not time to panic. If we get N's for 2, 3, 4 cycles, then we're going to panic a little bit, and you will have heard before that. So it's just minor incidences in class, and if there's a U, you will have heard about that, because that's and I'm not even sure I can count on one hand how many U's that we've had. Oh, did I just cursed myself? Shoot. So that's what you'll see in the conduct system that we have. So you'll just see those letter designations. And all of this, if you look in the middle school handbook, when we get that published, these are all these descriptions and everything are in that as well. All right, back. Okay, so that's just a rundown of the academic piece. So again, just a little bit of those differences that you'll see between middle school and lower school when it comes to schedule and grading and conduct. So now this is the really fun part when we talk about what might be already happening, or for those of you who have already had middle schoolers, what has happened sometimes with your teenager. So because Twitter is hilarious and there are some very clever people, I kind of run through this with some funny tweets that I found about teenagers and preteens. All right, Matt, go ahead. So this first one, preteens are living proof that you can love someone with every fiber of your being while still hoping they'll leave the room. We love these guys, but sometimes they are just nuts, right? And one day they are a sweet, kind, wonderful child, the child that we have known for however long. And then the next day, it's a different story. And sometimes here, it's like hour by hour. And, what happened in A block and, is very different than what happens in D block. So it's this sort of volatility that characterizes this time frame. And I can't tell you how many times I've had, phone calls or parents in my office that say, but my kid has never, whatever, like lied, or my kid has never done, something that is out of character for them. There's some chance they'll do it in the next 3 years. And again, not time to panic, because what we say is it's developmentally appropriate, even if it's not appropriate. And it's our job to say, hey, we need to do this differently. Okay, so it's this just sort of like, I'm not sure I recognize this person on a day-to-day basis that we will often see in middle school, and it's completely normal for us to, see those kinds of changes on a day-to-day basis with these guys, and how different that is. That is, I'll tell you what middle school teachers really enjoy sometimes is this sort of unpredictability about, day-to-day what these guys are going to give us. All right, Mac. This is good. I love this. All right. So, by the way, I'm chaperoning your school dance. Gently lays out MC Hammer pants and starts quad stretches. Don't let them keep you away. They will say, you better not chaperone the dance. Don't come to my game. Don't come to my This I Believe speech, which is something wonderful they do in the 8th grade. Don't come to this. Don't listen to that. Come. Be present. Different opportunities to be on campus with your middle schooler, but they do want you here. They will protest, and they will say they don't want you, and they may even believe that they don't want you there, but they actually do want you there, and they do want you involved. So if you can stand it, chaperone a dance. We're planning on having them this year. So, come and be a part of their life here in middle school. Now, don't ask them to dance. Okay, don't necessarily like straighten the collar while they're out on the dance floor. Okay, you'll be relegated to the outskirts, but be present with them. You know, we have some really great opportunities. We do cookouts. Come cook, come help with the food. Be present in their life, even if they are protesting loudly. Take the opportunities that you are given here, because they really do want you, and they really do still need you involved in this time period. All right, Mac. Interpretation is key in middle school, because they often don't mean what they say, even though they think they do. Mrs. Bragg, because they just say the craziest stuff. And Mrs. Bragg, who is a 7th and 8th grade teacher, has often kid quotes on the board. And one of my favorites is, and I can't even remember who said it in the last couple of years, but it was, "Don't believe everything you think." Like, that came out of a middle schooler's, which I thought was incredibly profound. Okay, so this, like my stomach hurts, is teenager for I have a test in geometry. So you'll hear them say things that, you know, like, oh, my stomach hurts, or, you know, something. Ask more questions, probe a little bit more deeply, because what they're saying initially is not really always what's happening or always the cause of, you know, it may not be what they ate. It may in fact be that they have a geometry test, or they're feeling worried about something, because they worry a lot in this time frame. They really do, unnecessarily, but they don't know that, because it's still just part of what's happening with them. There is scientific data that links this time period to 3, 4, 5-year-old time period for these guys. Socially and emotionally, it's about the same, but it's really because there's so much growth happening with their bodies and their brains that it just makes them crazy. And so it really is, you know, there's all sorts of studies that link those two time periods, because these kids are so much alike in those time periods. And it's because they're just exploding with growth at every level. All right. Also, they're all my favorites. This is why I picked them. So 12-year-old son forgot his electric toothbrush. Now he has to move his arm. His protest was legendary. At the airport, just kissed the 13-year-old son on his forehead. He reacted like Dracula getting impaled by a wooden stake. They are going to completely lose it over something. And they are going to have this extreme emotional reaction. And you are going to think, oh my gosh, what's happening with friends or with teachers? And there may in fact be something, but it's probably not as bad as they may be expressing. So again, ask questions, ask calm, probing questions of them, and then please ask questions of us. You know, if you hear something that makes you go, and there's a really great story if I have time to tell it, about something a wonderful young lady said, but it made her mother panic. And so, you know, ask questions. You can always call or email and say, hey, my child said this. I'm a little worried, or can you help me understand? Because they're going to say things that may sound like, you know, we have no idea what we're doing. Or, you know, it's just utter chaos. So when you have those moments, just ask questions, please. Please, 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 because their perspective is completely off. Mr. Kleekamp also has a good phrase that he says, you know, he used to say this about his children, and it may still be true because it's true of mine, that they're like the National Enquirer. They get it right maybe 40, 50% of the time. And so they're not lying. They just have a skewed perspective on how things work and impact and the reality of a given situation. So it's probably not as bad as they're making it out to be, but please, please, please ask questions of them, of us. All right, I think we only have a couple more. Go ahead, Mac. Oh, that's it. So that was it. Okay. So now we have experts on social emotional. So Lisa Butera is our guidance counselor. She also runs the Target program. She is, of course, a new middle school parent with you guys. So she is living this out as well. So she's going to come share a few things with you. And then Ryan Snowden, who is our middle school dean, is also going to come speak to you for a few minutes.
Yes, so we are in this together, guys. And just to tag on to what Amy was talking about, if I could give you a small piece of advice about that, we've probably all heard about the helicopter parenting approach, right? Perhaps you've heard about the lawn mowing parent approach, which is when parents try to clear the way, right? Smooth everything out so there's really not so many obstacles and bumps along the way. And clearly, after listening to Amy, you can kind of see that doesn't quite go with our middle school approach because we do want them to face obstacles and bumps along the way when they're in this safe kind of, zone where the risks aren't super high and the consequences aren't super high. So that's not quite our approach. But I'll challenge you to think of an empowering parent approach. And what I mean by that is try the best you can, and I'm going to be taking my own advice, to when we parent, to think in the back of our head, how can I empower my child through this process? There's going to be tons of opportunities for situations to come up and for you to be able to go in your head and say, I can take care of this. I will do this, this, and this problem's going to be solved. Or I know how you can do this. This is what you need to do. Then do this. Write this down. Turn this in. And then you're going to tell me after that I was right. However, in all of that, you're kind of taking the power away from the child. And so the conversations that we start to have, and they've started this in lower school, it's not a brand new thing to these guys, but we're trying to push it to where the child can identify, here's the problem, or here's what I'm up against, but I can fix this, or I know where to go for help, or this is okay that it's hard, I'm not going to run from it. And also in that approach, if you could practice, and I try hard, I do it really good here with the middle schoolers, to have that poker face, right? So they can come, because what we're trying to do, the goal is to have some open communication, particularly in this awkward time. So a poker face helps. You don't want them to finally come to you and then freak out, right? Because that's going to shut that down. But have that open communication and then just simply say, well, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts? And see if they can come up and kind of parent together through that and see how that approach. And then, of course, Amy, Ryan, myself, we're all here to help. But just a little challenge for you guys along the way. So I just also wanted to give you a little more specifics about how we're going to help this next week go a little bit. So next Tuesday is the orientation for your kiddos. Locker move-in is at 2 o'clock. Their orientation is at 3 o'clock. You are invited to join them to move into their lockers. You are not invited to their orientation. So realistically, to move in a locker is not going to take an hour. If it's a boy, it's probably going to take about 10 minutes at the most. If it's a girl, it depends on the decorating plans of how long that's going to take. So just kind of keep that in mind. When they first arrive in the building on Tuesday, they'll go to a table. They'll get their locker assignment. They'll get their combination. They're going to have good old-fashioned combination locks that they're going to have to figure out. They have instructions on combination locks in case you've forgotten. And we are professionals at helping with combination locks, even though we took it off for a year. So we're not only going to have 6th graders using locks for the first time, we're also going to have 7th graders using locks for the first time, which is going to be extra fun. So they'll do that. They'll move into their lockers. And then at 3 o'clock, they will also, where they pick up their locker assignment, there'll be a list, and it's going to tell them who their target teacher is. The target, you saw that appear on the schedule that Amy put up. Some days they have chapel during target time. Some days they'll have religion. And some days they will actually go to target, which is, if you could kind of picture an advisor, it's not really a homeroom, but it's a teacher, and so they do various things. So somewhat in an advisory role. So for this orientation day, they'll figure out who their target teacher is. It's going to be listed on a big board. They'll go to that room. The target teacher will then pass out their schedule to them, give them a planner, teach them how to read their schedule, teach them how to use their planner, at least for the next day, and they will then take them on a tour around the middle school, show them where each of their classes are, and practice with them and help them understand what to do when they first arrive on their first day, how to get to their first class, how to get to their locker, how to get to their first class, how to get to their second class, and then how to get back to them after their second class. Then they're going to have target again that second day of school at 10:30, and they're going to reset them to get them to target the next day. So we kind of go little bit by little bit. Amy, Ryan, and I station ourselves in the hallways all day long to get them, to push them out of their lockers and everything else. So it truly works. So I think there is 3 things that you can do to help them have a successful first day. To the best of your ability, encourage them to do their summer homework. If they choose not to, then they're going to feel one of those life lessons when they come. But it's up to you on how much encouraging one can do. So encourage them to do that summer homework, to have all of their supplies with them when they move into their lockers, or certainly on the first day of school. Have them ready. They have the supplies list for each class, and they may understand their schedule enough to know these 2 classes I'm not going to have my first day. I can leave that stuff at home, or I can leave that stuff in their locker. If they don't understand it, just have them bring it. We'll explain it to them. So have all their materials, and then on that first day, be on time. Be on time. What on time really means, second row, what on time really means is, so at 7:55, that bell rings. The majority of the middle schoolers gather here, either in here or outside, and they hang out. So they start gathering here about 7:45. They really enjoy it. They really like to hang out, kind of just catch up with each other, because once that bell goes, they're kind of off to the races, and they have a very, very structured day. So at 7:55, for the ones who are hanging out in here, they leave here, they walk to 2 buildings over, they go to their lockers, figure out what they need for their first class, and then they go to their first class, which will either be that building or the building over. That, to be leisurely and not rushed, a good 10 minutes, maybe 7 minutes, right? But if they're getting out their car back there at 7:55, they have to hoof it, because it's going to take 5 minutes to even enter the building at their, before their locker. So I would give them a little leeway. I would shoot to get here about 7:45, 7:50, and then that'll kind of give them a cushion, because a lot of them do like to come in here and hang out and just kind of breathe a little bit before they get going. So those are the 3 things that I would suggest to help them out. And the last thing I just want to share real quick is at the end of 6th grade, I always ask, through the target classes, I always ask them if you have any advice to give to the incoming 6th graders. So here's the list. This is actually from 2 years ago. Last year we didn't use lockers, and I felt like they kind of had an advantage over there in middle school without those lockers. So this is from 2 years ago, and this is straight from their mouths. So memorize your lock combination and remember to lock your locker. Learn your schedule. Be on time. 5 minutes is more than enough time to get from class to class. Stay organized, use your planner, check your emails several times a day, manage your time. If a teacher gives you an opportunity to do homework in class, do it. Don't take the night off from reading at the beginning of the cycle. Save it. You might need it. Don't procrastinate. Don't put off your homework. Get started right away. Save the easy stuff for last. Don't forget to charge your computer each night. Don't stay up late. Get good sleep. Ask for help when you need it. Be prepared for all your classes. Always bring what you need. It's okay to email teachers when you need help or are absent. Don't spread rumors. Just be nice. Then they go on further to say, just showing up for class is not enough. You must pay attention and work. Listen carefully to your teachers. Study. Really study. Learn the concepts, not just the answer. Try different ways to study until you find one that works for you. Middle school is more difficult than lower school. Don't be scared. Stay calm. Don't overthink. 6th grade is not the horror you may think. Ask questions. Questions are a good thing. Don't expect A's to be handed to you. You have to work for them. B's aren't the worst thing in the world. Teachers are not responsible for you or your work. And then, finally, they gave these, which I kind of consider life lessons. Doing poorly on an assignment or test does not define you. Learn from your mistakes. Try your best. Make the most of every day and every class. Stay away from drama. Be yourself. Be genuine. Don't underestimate yourself. You're capable of more than you think. So I think if our kiddos learn half of this coming year, I think it'll be a pretty successful year. So, Ryan, are you up?
Yes.
I think you are.
Do I need the microphone?
I think they're recording, so I think you need it.
Got it. Okay. Good evening. So for those that don't know me, my name is Ryan Snowden, and when I'm not teaching 5th grade science, I have a few different hats that I wear here on campus, one of which is athletic director. If your kiddos play sports, they're going to see me a lot. I will tell you that I tell them, the kids, that if they see me coming, don't panic, because usually it's going to be a high five or a fist bump. If they've done something wrong, it may be a swift kick in the pants. That's figurative, right? And then as the middle school dean, it's kind of the same role, but it just incorporates those students that aren't playing sports. Same kind of thing. So most often than not, more often than not, when they see me, or if I call you, it's not necessarily bad. It's just an update on something. So what I kind of see my role as middle school dean is I like to try to get the kids to lose their binoculars, okay? Teens and tweens have this thing called binocular vision. And if you can imagine, when you look through a set of binoculars the right way, everything seems a little too big, right? Bigger than it really is. If you turn those binoculars around and look through them the wrong way, everything looks smaller or less significant than it really is. Kids see the world that way, right? Everything is either way out of proportion, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world, or it's not a big deal. So as we go through the day, if teachers have an issue, kids have an issue, sometimes the students come to me, sometimes the teachers come to me, and we just like to have those conversations. Let's bring this image into real focus and not make sure that it's not too overblown or too insignificant, right? So I just like to let them take their binoculars away, right, so they can see things for what they are. Again, so excited about this group. I got a chance to really get to know the returning 5th graders from last year. Great group. We're looking forward to a fantastic year. I know they're going to be a great addition to our middle school, and we're going to have a tremendous impact. So we're glad to have you guys. As Amy said, be involved, stay involved. We're just glad to have you guys. So I don't have anything else. Any questions about anything? Cool.
All right, so 2 quick sort of procedural things that I forgot to say because it's not been an issue, but last year we didn't have it. So they can't take backpacks to class. So they will bring all of their belongings in a backpack, and then the backpack will go in the locker. So that's for a couple of reasons, because the backpacks get all over the place in the classrooms, but also because we really want to try to force them into some level of organization. Because if they take their backpacks to class, it all gets shoved in the backpack, and then they just dig and dig and dig and dig and dig. And we really want to try to help them, push them towards some organizational strategy. And sixth grade, the teachers do a great job of helping them kind of figure out what works for them. So like Lisa said, they're going to get a planner that matches our schedule. So it is set up by block, A block, B block. So it's a really great resource. They get to choose whether or not to use that in 7th and 8th grade, but we give this particular planner to them in 6th grade, and the teachers every class, take out your planner, take out your planner, take out your planner, because it's such an important strategy. So they won't be able to take their backpacks physically with them to class. Also, we give them a whole lot of grace for a couple of weeks with, oh my gosh, I got the wrong class stuff, and it's A block, but they go to the C block class, and so we give them an extraordinary amount of flexibility. There's really no such thing as tardies for a while with the 6th graders and probably the 7th graders again this year, because like they said, they haven't had lockers either. So, that's one thing when they come home and say, well, I can't take my backpack to class. They're right. Cell phones, that's the other thing. Once they come on campus and they go to that locker at 8:05, the cell phone is turned completely off, and they are not allowed to use that cell phone during the day. So until 3:05, they do not turn on that cell phone, because what we found is that the first thing they do when they get to that locker is grab the phone. And then it's just this sort of constant energy with them. And so I really just a few years ago, because they were so just grabbing that thing, that I wanted to eliminate that pressure for them. And so honestly, they're better when they don't have that thought of, oh my gosh, I need to check my phone. Okay, so what that means is that it's going to be a little harder for you to get in contact with them. So really, it's the parents that have a harder time with this than the kids sometimes. So I promise, if you need to get a hold of your child, Mrs. Glosson in the office, we will get a hold of your child. So if there's something that you need, please, please, please let us know. We're great at getting messages to them. If there's an emergency, of course, we have some flexibility with this policy. I had a kid last year whose mom had surgery, and, he kept his phone with him because he wanted some updates on mom. Perfectly fine. Like, we can make those kinds of accommodations. But as a general rule, the phone goes off. So if you text them during the day and they don't answer, it's really because they don't have their phone. Now, I say the thing that works around this is messages on the laptops. Because if they have an iPhone, which most of them do, they're going to have the Mac probably, and they'll have the messages. So my plea with you is, please don't text them during the day. It's very distracting for them. And honestly, these are good kids. And if mom or dad texts me, they want to answer back. They feel, they need to answer back because it's mom or dad. But then they're, possibly trying to do that in class, and the teachers, so if at all possible, please run your messages through the middle school office. We are happy to do that for the kiddos, and it really creates an environment where they're less distracted during the day. And some of you are like, well, my kid doesn't have a cell phone. Great. Perfect. They don't need it. So don't think that they need the cell phone, but for those that do, they really won't have access to it during the day. Last thing is a story that I will tell you that I think illustrates so beautifully middle school and the middle school mind. And it was on our DC trip several years ago. And we were flying into DC, and actually Mr. Kleekamp was there on this trip. And it was a very, very bumpy landing. And I mean, like, you hit those air pockets and drop. And so, I was a little unnerved. I've had tried to put my poker face on. But it was really, you could hear the kids like, ah, yay! And they're, having a great time. But we finally landed in DC, and it did, it unnerved a couple of the kids. And so, of course, the first thing they want to do is pull out their cell phones. But, same thing, like, okay, let's get our baggage, get on the bus. And so once they get on the bus, then they could, call the parents and tell them. And I hear this girl, and she's just a little bit behind me, and she's talking to her mom about how rough the landing was. And as she's telling the story, it got rougher and rougher. And the description, I'm thinking, what? I was on that plane. And she says finally, and Mom, then the plane flipped upside down. Like those words came out of her mouth. And I turned around and I was like, what? Because I hear her mom on the phone, like, ah! And so I said, do you realize what you just said? And it's like she snapped out of a trance, right? She said, okay, no, it didn't flip upside down. Like, oh my gosh, you have just completely undone your mother who is like 1,000 miles away. And so she calmed herself down and calmed her mom down. But it was just such a picture of what happens sometimes in middle school. Like they just get so worked up about whatever's happening that they completely lose perspective. And so when you have that child, possibly at some point in the next 3 years, completely worked up, and you're thinking, good gosh, the plane is flipping upside down. The pilot has clearly jumped, and that middle school is obviously in chaos, and they have no idea what they're doing. And what have we done sending our kid to this place? Please call. Please email. Please ask questions, because truly, and again, she was not intentionally trying to deceive or panic her mother. She just lost it within the context of her own head, telling the story and getting worked up. So it does get a little bumpy sometimes, but I promise you, the pilots and the flight attendants never get off the plane. It really doesn't ever flip upside down. We can always cruise through the turbulence. Just hang in there with us. And again, if you experience those moments, that's what we're here for them and for you guys. So thank you again for coming tonight. I'm happy to answer questions or set up, another time if you have some longer questions. But we are excited about, your kids. I was with them a little bit last year helping out, and they really are a fun group. I'm excited about these guys joining our middle school. So thank you again. I appreciate your time.